Execution double 90 style. Sit in the body underground. What's good? It's Woog. I was giving some real thought to what my favorite rap album of all time is. I'm not saying that it's the greatest rap album. I mean, I know that you've got to weigh in impact and longevity and overall public opinion and just how mega something was when you're talking about the greatest of something. So, you know, I respect there's Tupac's All Eyes on Me, Biggie's Life After Death, Nas's Illmatic. I'll throw in Public Enemy's It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, Outkast, Aquemini, Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang, Only Built for Cuban Links by Raekwon. Look, there are a lot of great albums that you could argue are greater than the one that I'm about to mention. But if you were to ask me if I had a favorite album that I just personally love listening to more than any other rap album ever, I'm not saying that it's the most lyrical, none of that. But in terms of listenability and what sounds the most pleasant to my ear over the course of time, by the way, Marshall Mathers LP, another great album that is also one of my favorite of all time. But Bone Thugs-n-Harmony's 1995 album, East 1999 Eternal, has to be, without question, my favorite rap album of all time. And the more I thought about this, the more it became clear. Again, I've got a lot of favorites. I mean, hell, Capone Noriega's The War Report for me is up there. I love listening to that album. Again, Aquemini, Only Built for Cuban Links. There's several, and there's several underground artists, Atmosphere, other artists that I love listening to. MF Doom's Operation Doomsday, let alone Mad Villain. Tons of albums that I really enjoy. But if I had to pick one and express to others why they should listen to this album above all other albums, Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style is another one, Dr. Dre's The Chronic, I could go on. But one album that I personally enjoy above all the rest, East 1999 Eternal by Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Like, you've got to think about like the backdrop of when this album was released. I remember when I first saw it at Sam Goody. I think I saw it at Sam Goody before I saw it at Tower Records. But when I walked into the store, the top albums at that time, at least for that week or couple of weeks, it was Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. It was also the Loonies, Operation Stackola. That was the album with I Got 5 on it. But at the time of this album's release, Eazy-E had just passed. Bone Thugs had just released Creepin' on a Come Up the year before, and that allowed them to make their splash with Thuggish Ruggish Bone, For the Love of Money, and a lot of people's, you know, album cut, No Surrender. That track was so hard. But they had released Creepin' on a Come Up. And I remember, you know, around the same time, you know, my household, my family, I was like 11 or 12 at the time. We had just gotten cable. And at the time we had like all the channels. So I was just for the first time being exposed to MTV, to BET's Rap City. At the time it was Joe Claire and Big Les. And there was a channel called The Box, music television you control, where you could dial up and order the 3-digit code for the music video that you wanted to see. So you could just sit back and watch all these videos from a bunch. You know, I remember watching Lost Boys videos, you know, that crew out of South Jamaica, Queens. I remember Rotten Rascals. I remember Helter Skelter, Smith & Wesson, you know, the Boot Camp Clique and their affiliates. I remember watching all of these videos, Bahamadia videos, all these different videos. And I remember seeing For the Love of Money, and For the Love of Money dropped after Thuggish Ruggish Bone. So Thuggish Ruggish Bone was the first Bone single from Creepin' on a Come Up, followed by For the Love of Money. And it seemed like within months of For the Love of Money, we got this other video that wasn't on that Creepin' on a Come Up EP, and it was first of the month. And I had never heard anything like this. Like, you got to look back at what they sampled for that song, by the way. It was Chapter 8's I Just Want to Be Your Girl. Now, the lead singer of Chapter 8 was Anita Baker. So this is like a pre-solo Anita Baker. Chapter 8, I Just Want to Be Your Girl. Listen to that song. You hear the dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, and you could kind of hear that first of the month instrumental and how they use that Chapter 8 song on the beat. By the way, DJ U-Neek produced Creepin' on a Come Up. DJ U-Neek produced East 1999 Eternal, and he produced that double album that followed, The Art of War. He's a very underrated producer, maybe not in the totality of his catalog, but when you think about what he did for Bone Thugs and Harmony, that's one of the more underrated efforts in terms of one producer working with one particular group. There is no Bone Thugs and Harmony vintage sound without DJ U-Neek. Let's make that clear. But this album was released on the backdrop, again, of that Creepin' on a Come Up EP. This was now 1995, so Doggy Style, you know, was 2 years old. It dropped in 93. The Chronic was 3 years old. This is before All Eyes on Me. This is before, obviously, Machiavelli. You know, Tupac was still alive. This was the same year as Me Against the World, another one of my favorite albums. That's probably my favorite Tupac album. But this is also, you know, 2 years before Notorious Thug. So there was no It's Bone and Biggie, none of that at the time. Warren G was one of the biggest stars in rap. I remember they had the Show soundtrack where Bone Thugs had a song, Everyday Thing. That Show soundtrack, it was a Def Jam documentary, and so they had an album. It features Summertime in the LBC by the Dove Shack, the Warren G Long Beach Proteges, and it had How High, the original song by Method Man and Redman. So Method Man had just dropped To Cal the year prior. So this is 1995. The East Coast, West Coast thing wasn't a super big deal until a little bit later. I mean, there were tensions, and obviously I think 95 was the year where the Source Awards had Snoop Dogg, you know, coming out in New York saying New York ain't got love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, like that whole moment. So tensions were building around this time, but it hadn't reached those Hit 'em Up levels yet. Hit 'em Up wasn't even released yet. Again, Tupac was in jail, so Suge Knight hadn't bailed him out, and they hadn't recorded like California Love and so forth. But when I first saw the first of the month music videos, I was again thinking I had never heard anything like this. It's more than just rapping fast, and I know that people have criticized and said that Bone, you know, took from Freestyle Fellowship on the West Coast. They were saying that you know, the crew with AC Alone and Micah 9, that, you know, they had this Good Life venue where a bunch of, you know, LA rappers were spitting, freestyling in Lamert Park. It was a very iconic movement. A lot of artists came from that movement, but Eazy-E reportedly did drop by and kind of like soaked up game from this non-gangster rap but very hip-hop West Coast movement. A lot of people theorize that that's where Bone got their flow, but I'm thinking no, because Bone had that Faces of Death album when they were still in Cleveland before they even met up with Eazy-E. Eazy heard them spit and then invited them out to LA from Cleveland and then started working with them. So it's not like there was an Eazy-E influence on how they were gonna sound. They pretty much were already rapping fast, but their style and this album and their, you know, discography is so much more than just fast rapping, right? And I know that they had other, you know, contemporaries at the time that they were supposedly beefing with. 3 6 Mafia, Crucial Conflict, Do or Die, basically a lot of the other Midwest groups that kind of had a similar sound, right? Around that 95, 94, 96 period. But the Bone Thugs members, specifically Krayzie Bone and Bizzy Bone, my two favorite Bone members, and they all bring something unique to the table. Wish, Layzie, Flesh as well. But the Bone Thugs members have such an ability to put their foot on the gas with the fast rap in certain moments and start to up the intensity, and then take their foot off the gas a little bit to give that laid back mellowed sound. So you had a lot of variety in how they were delivering their bars. So, you know, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, that Execution Double 9 in the beginning, track 1 of East 1999, you can hear how Bizzy comes in with that Execution Double 90 styles. Gotta make that money, man. Oh, but like, listen to how laid back Bizzy comes into that verse. Like the way it's just masterful, and it's crazy that they were only like 19, 20, 21 at the time. They showed such like craft in terms of how they were honing their abilities, when they would rap fast, when they would sound laid back, when they would pick it up. It was the timing of everything, and in their cadence, in their flow, it was just so musical musical. That's why, you know, they talk about the harmony, plus they layered their vocals on top of one another on a lot of the hooks, like stalking jackals, walking jackals, ready to pap you if we have to daily, chill, or like putting them on the run with him in shotgun, you know, it was often between Krayzie and Layzie when they would kind of do the, you know, the one line and then one line harmonizing on the choruses. But then on other choruses like First of the Month, you've got everybody involved. In the remix, the DJ U-Neek Mo Thugs remix of The Crossroads, and I'm going to get into this as well, you know, you could hear all the voices on the hooks, or you could hear Wishbone on the East 1999 title track, the track 2, the Cleveland is the city where we come from. So they're all saying that, but then at the end you can hear Wish with the East 1999, which that was one of Wish's highlights on that album. At the end, final verse of the track 2, they had a music video after the First of the Month music video. It was East 1999, which is interesting. It's a track 2, it was a single, but it sounds like a non-single. It's a great album cut because there's no like verse, chorus, verse, chorus. It's just one Bone rapping after the other. It was Layzie Bone, then Krayzie Bone, then Bizzy Bone, then Flesh and Bone, who had a different flow at this time than that whispery flow that he had starting around the time of his solo debut. He was the first Bone member to drop a solo. It was that THUGS album with World So Cruel with Rev Run. But Flesh switched from that, you know, the flow that you hear on For the Love of Money, the opening verse, to that whispery style that he kind of carried through the rest of the Bone career mostly. But East 1999, the song, doesn't sound like a single. It's got a sick beat, and I mean, just the way it opens up with that East 1999, think about back in the day, and then, you know, Layzie sounds like he was just shot out of a cannon when he starts that one, but it's a very menacing song. A lot of these beats on this album are super spooky. They got more like spiritual, and they started to kind of have a more colorful, popish, kind of a brighter sound going forward. But this album is pretty dark. The beats are, they have like a G-Funk influence, you could tell, especially with some of those synth sounds. Like you'll hear like the woo, those just kind of those spooky keys. Like listen to Mr. Bill Collector, track 6. That's another one of my favorite. Them calling me Mr. Bill Collector, needing my money, know what's up tonight. Like, and you listen to the just a kind of like colorful sound. It's that synth key where they're kind of modulating it throughout the verse. So listen to the hook, listen to how they come into the verse, and listen to some of those sounds, very subtle sounds that kind of color the beat. It's very, again, G-Funk, sounds a bit West Coast, but again, it's got like a dark edge to it. It's a little bit more spooky, a little bit more haunting, and they pretty much carry this theme throughout the album. So you've got East 1999, after that, the introduction, which again, I mean, you want to talk about a pretty sick track 1. It's got a Bizzy verse, then a Krayzie verse, then a Layzie verse, and then they go back to the execution double 90 style. Then they got Eternal, another really good album cut. That's the putting them on the run with him in shotgun. And then the Crept and We Came, track 4, Down 71, The Getaway. That's the one with the gunshots throughout it, where they're kind of like, you know, Bizzy's in court, gets the electric chair, but then he starts his verse and it's super rapid fire, and then Layzie punches in and they're trying to rescue Bizzy out, and then Krayzie comes at the end of it. So it's a pretty interesting narrative, but again, they're doing it in their very unique, no pun intended, right? DJ U-Neek, but their unique style. They're kind of carrying out this story on track 5. Then you get into Mr. Bill Collector, which by that point, that's probably my favorite song out of the first 6. It's just so smooth. That beat, I just love that beat, really. And if you listen to Bizzy's style on this album versus how he sounds like on a lot of The Art of War, some of his solo records, like The Gift and Heaven's Movie, the debut one, and even a lot of his stuff more recently, like, he seems like he had a more laid back style on this album. Like you think about that line on that East 1999 song where he's like, remember endo, my endo, why the barrels of my 12 gauge are empty, the scandalous niggas, the better the thunder, ain't no with the family. Like he'll pick it up in pieces, but very laid back flow. I feel like after this album, he started to get more into that Notorious Thugs style. There's 7 a.m. walk in the morning, where he sounds a little bit more manic, similar style to how he carried it out on Thug Love, the Art of War track on disc 2, track 2, that featured Tupac. You listen to Bizzy's flow on there and on Notorious Thugs, on Handle the Vibe, track 2 on disc 1 of Art of War. He just sounds more amped up and he sounds like he's bouncing off the walls. On this one, he sounds like he just took a smoke and is more or less methodical, taking his time. Again, he's slowing down in certain parts of the verse and picking it back up. Think about how he enters and carries out the Mr. Bill Collector verse, super laid back. And I mean, I appreciate the different dimensions of Bizzy, but I really liked it when he got back into that, you know, that early flow that he had. Granted, way back in No Surrender, he was obviously, you know, bouncing off the walls on that Creepin' on the Come Up, at least on that song from that EP. My nigga, just handle your business. So can I get a witness? So you like, he was bouncing off the walls there. But again, on this one, he really slowed it down. And I think that that was something that was missing in the years to follow on most songs that had Bizzy on them. I feel like he kind of adopted that. It was almost a mix of Bizzy's old flow with Tupac, and I know Tupac and him were cool, and Pac had a big influence on Bizzy, and I feel like he kind of kept that yell shout style on a lot of his songs that followed. But I really appreciated the mellowness of a lot of his flows on East 1999 Eternal. So then after Mr. Bill Collector, you get to Bud Smokers Only. That's one of 2 big time weed anthems on this album. The other one is the iconic Buddha Lovers, right? Buddha Lovers samples the Isley Brothers, or at least it reinterprets the Isley Brothers Choosy Lover. And that is just one of those, like, it's a stoner classic, Buddha Lovers is. But the lesser known stoner song from this album, I mean, they got a lot of stoner songs. I mean, half of their, you know, content was weed, smoke, bass, you know what I mean? But the other stoner anthem on here was Bud Smokers Only. And then you get into the Crossroads, which I don't know how many of y'all remember, but when they first came out with this album, they had the song Crossroad on it, and it was a tribute to their late friend Wally. And Wally, even though you're gone, you still got love from Bone, and express your soul, and we'll see you at the crossroads. It was one of my 4 or so favorite songs from the album. But then months later, all of a sudden, I hear this song on the radio, and it's clearly a Bone song. They're saying Crossroads and singing Crossroads, but what is this? Like, I had no idea. So I remember just running back to the radio with my tape and trying to hit record anytime I would hear it come back on, trying to tape this new version of the Crossroads on the radio. And it wasn't until weeks later when I went to Tower or Sam Goody, I saw the CD single of the Crossroads, and it had both versions. At the time, they called it the DJ U-Neek Mo Thugs remix of Crossroad, called The Crossroads. So then months later, they re-release East 1999, replacing Crossroad, which again was a solid song, really good song. Check that one out if you haven't. But they replaced that song with this remix version of The Crossroads, and it was this version of The Crossroads that ended up being the classic, that ended up being the Grammy Award winning, probably Bone Thugs' most famous song, period. The Crossroads, just kind of immortalized, right? They ended up putting out a music video to it, and it was just an iconic song from that point forward. So there were actually 2 different versions of this East 1999 Eternal album, one with Crossroad, one with The Crossroads. And it's kind of hard to find that original version of the album. You would have to like find it used from somebody else. I'm sure it's like well out of print. So after The Crossroads, you get into the acapella Me Killer. It's just a couple minutes long, and it's just like a Mr. Ouija type song where all you hear is the vocals. There's no music. It's just showing you the harmonies, the skills, the abilities of the Bone Thugs members, and how they could kind of bring their voice together to create new sounds and new harmonies. It just creates a chilling effect. Pretty beautiful, quite frankly. And you know, Krayzie Bone, I feel like he doesn't get enough love as just in terms of being an all-time level MC. Again, you could find better lyricists than Krayzie Bone, but when you look at how he used his style, I mean, I remember seeing Bizzy in an interview years ago around the time of the BTNH Resurrection comeback album for Bone. He was saying that he looks at Krayzie as being the scientist in the group, and you could totally see how Krayzie is the studio songwriting scientist in the group. I mean, you hear his voice on more choruses than anybody else in the group, and his mastery, his control over his flow, his tempo. First of all, I think he might be the fastest rapper in the group, and he might him and Bizzy are the most technically sound when it comes to the flow and how they're gonna harmonize and kind of sing their way through a verse, right? So you got the Me Killer track, and then you got the Land of the Heartless, which is another really good album cut. Like that's the one where it's like buck to the bang, sending bullets to the brain. And then you hear Layzie Bone start the verse, and then Bizzy's got a verse, Krayzie got a verse, but it's the one where it's I stay place khaki with Jackie, start off, there's really no place to run, cause get vicious with my clique, cause even the bitches carry guns. It's like a really cool chorus. And then you get into the more funky, slightly funkier, like listen to the bass line. Again, DJ U-Neek's production is impeccable. No shorts, no losses. However, if there were a couple songs that I'm not as crazy about on this album, another pun, right? Crazy, but no shorts, no losses, not one of my favorite tracks on the album. Same thing with the song After Buddha Lovers, track 14, Die, Die, Die. Not one of my favorite songs on this album, nor is the album closer, Shots to the Double Glock, where Bone like invites the great members of the Graveyard Shift and Poetic Hustlers. I remember liking the Poetic Hustlers album, Trials and Tribulations. I like that album, and I liked Graveyard Shift's songs on the first Mo Thugs, their compilation, the first label Mo Thugs album. They had a song called Killing Fields by Graveyard Shift, and I thought it sounded like a Bone song, but it was pretty tight. Check that out. But those three would probably be my least favorite three songs on the album. Again, No Shorts, No Losses, Die, 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 and Shots to the Double Glock. So after No Shorts, No Losses, we get First of the Month. Again, I remember just my whole world, my music world changed when I was exposed to First of the Month, and that's what made me a Bone Thugs and Harmony fan. I'm like, who are these four dudes with the afros? You know, Flesh was in the video, but he didn't have a verse on First of the Month. So I'm like, who are these dudes? And like, I remember like seeing the car, seeing Krayzie on the hood of the car, seeing Bizzy with his hair all blown out, you know, Layzie and Wish too. And they all had a different sounding voice, but it came together so well. And I really think that, you know, Krayzie and Bizzy's verses on that song, like think about wake up and I said that my sister's already dressed, and I really go in my stare, watch and make sure no one's touching my check, and it's real weird, then put it up in my pocket with it. It's just so melodic, like the whole, it doesn't even sound like a rap, right? It sounds like the dude just singing his way through his verse, but it was so quick and agile and clever. And then you think about me and my, we having a wonderful day. It's like, it's perfect. It is perfect. Krayzie's verse on First of the Month. But yeah, just a brilliant song altogether. Just a bona fide classic. One of my favorite rap songs of all time. But so then you get Buddha Lovers, this very slow, like Bud Smokers Only is a little bit faster than Buddha Lovers. Like Bud Smokers Only is like got a quicker tempo. Buddha Lovers super slowed down, but they have so many different harmonies on that one, like, hey, it's nothing but the bone in me. Like they just, it's clowning. You can still hear that G-Funk synth kind of playing like a little earworm, ear candy in the background. So yeah, Buddha Lovers is just a super unique style song, like unlike anything that you'll hear from just about any rap artist if you think about it. So then it's followed by Die, Die, Die. Then it's the Mr. Ouija 2. Now they had a Mr. Ouija on the Creepin on the Come Up. This one is kind of like a variation of it. It was a little bit better, a little bit more technically precise, a slightly better sound, better harmonies. So this was like an improved version of the original Mr. Ouija, and it leads perfectly into my favorite Bone Thugs and Harmony song, which is Mo Murda. Like, my goodness, you want to talk about a menacing, chilling, dark, melodic, symphonic, just a beautiful beat. Like you hear the last pieces of I'm here, are you with me? I'm here, Mo Murda, don't come again. Then the beat drops and it's just ding, 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 ding. It is just, I don't know, like I've never heard murder sound so beautiful. They just make murder sound gorgeous on this song, I swear. And so the beat drops, and Krayzie Bone has what I consider to be maybe Krayzie Bone's best verse, or maybe the best verse out of any Bone member on any song. It's that good. He starts to, you know, like after the first run of the chorus, it's a very long song. Each of the main four members, the most featured four members, Flesh, again, he had the first solo, but he, I think, was locked up at the time of the release or something, where he wasn't participating on as many songs as the other members on East 1999 Eternal, right? But this song, Mo Murda, has a verse from Krayzie, then a verse from Layzie, then a verse from Wish, and a verse from Bizzy, and they all shine on this one. And Krayzie, after the first chorus, he comes in, "Dear Mr. Ouija, better know who the boss is. Some nigga, if you want to get tossed in the river, nigga, put him in the mud so they pump blood, no love." And his verse is just so colorful, just so, it takes you like on a ride. It takes you on a journey through his rhythm and cadence and melody. Like, it's unlike anything, again. And then even the way that he wraps it up, I mean, he's just repeating Mo Murda, but the way that he does it, after going through the craziest thing to the brain, hey, with late niggas who think we played, it could be deadly, we still go. Like, he just does so much. And then he goes, "I did kill them, Mo Murda. That's what Ouija said. Gotta put one in your head. Bang, we coming to serve ya. Mo Murda, Mo Murda, Mo Murda, Mo Murda, Mo Murda, Mo Murda." And it's just so smooth, right? And so then Layzie's got his verse, very good verse, and he comes in and he's got a little bit more of like a yell style. And then Wish comes in, "Gotta kill, get him, nowhere to run, can't get away from my shotgun, leaving them bodies." Like, he's got a smooth verse too. I like that one. "If you wanna die," and then there's one more chorus, and then Bizzy comes in, almost sounded like bad era Michael Jackson. Like, it's weird. It's like, "Eternally thugs the style, wanna die a murder now." Like, and you can hear like the snaps of the fingers in the background, and it's just so smooth. But you know, he's got a part of it where he's all, "The murder man, the murder game, the bang, the bang, bang, bang." Like, the whole thing just comes together perfectly. And again, the beat, the setup, DJ U-Neek just gave him an alley-oop for them to dunk it. And again, each of those four members shined on Mo Murda. Again, my favorite Bone Thugs and Harmony track. And then you've got shots to the double Glock afterwards. So, yo, like, we could talk about influence, we could talk about impact. Here's what I do know. I think that Bone did influence a lot of styles. I don't think that you would have had like Nelly singing when he came out with Country Grammar in the way that he was, or, you know, the different artists who were kind of like chant singing their raps. I mean, yes, you did have 3 6 Mafia. Yes, you did have different groups coming around like at around the same time, but Bone's style of melody and the way that they use their voices, as much as they use it for speed, they use it to create melodies and harmonies and different vibes on different songs. Like, they did it so expertly. I really do think that that influence, like, you could hear Mariah Carey's breakdown that featured Krayzie Bone and was it Wish or Layzie? I think it was Wish and Krayzie on Mariah's breakdown song. You could hear how she is actually kind of using some of the Bone style and how she's kind of whisper singing, you know, chant singing, where it's almost rhythmic in a way where it's like a rap. Mariah did that. And then Mariah also returned the favor and featured on Krayzie Bone's Thug Mentality album on that I Still Believe song. So they collaborated multiple times. But yeah, East 1999, like, it you know, it had so much mystery to it as well. When it dropped, like, you saw, if you open like the CD case, and I did have the CD for this, I have it in storage still. I've got the Creepin on a Come Up. I've got a lot of the solo albums. I've got the Crossroads single. I still have that, right? But you open the album and there was so much mystery because there was like, you know, a map, which I'm sure isn't the real Cleveland map, right? I'm sure this isn't exactly where they're from. I mean, I don't know there to be an actual corner of East 1999 and Eternal. I do think that they made, what was it, St. Clair in 99 or something? They made it Bone Thugs and Harmony Way like about a year ago. So they actually had a street in Cleveland dedicated and named after them. But then you had this whole like Ouija board setup where this imagery had a lot of people thinking like, damn, do they worship the devil? What's up with these dudes? There was just a lot of mystery to Bone Thugs and Harmony. And then when you talk about the Ouija and the different imagery and how dark their lyrics were, how murderous, and you know, there was a lot kind of going into this image that had a lot of people wondering, what's up with these cats from Cleveland? You know what I mean? But yeah, if you were to ask me my favorite rap album, it is East 1999 Eternal. I just think that it is unlike any other rap album I've ever heard. Like, if you know people, or if you haven't heard it, and if you know people who haven't heard it, please just have them check it out because it's so well executed. And I do think that it's by far their best album. I like Art of War. I like BTNH Resurrection. I like Creepin on a Come Up. But this was them, I think, at the perfect spot because you also got a lot of non-participation in the work that followed, you know, from Bizzy in particular. Like, even now when they're touring, it's Bizzy doing his own thing and then the other Bone brothers are doing their thing. So I feel like their legacy could have been a lot greater if they were able to keep it together with all members, you know, participating throughout the years of their collective career. But we just didn't get that, unfortunately. I mean, they did have some shining moments on the Set It Off soundtrack. They had Days of Our Lives. Again, they had Everyday Thing. They had Shoot 'em up on the Great White Hype soundtrack. I remember that one too. So they did have great moments going forward, but it just could have, I feel like they could have had a lot more longevity and bigger, more sustained commercial success, because they hit the highest of heights with this and Art of War and stuff like that, but they tapered off after that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Bone Thugs and Harmony. Let me know your thoughts on East 1999 Eternal in particular. Is this your favorite Bone album, or do you have another one that you would place above this? Again, Art of War's got a ton of really good material. I like Clog Up Your Mind. I like Hard Times, It's All Real. I like, you know, a lot of songs on that album, even the single Look Into My Eyes. But for my money, East 1999 Eternal is like the pinnacle, like easily. It's 17 songs long, and again, aside from those couple of songs that I don't like, they're not bad songs, I just don't like them as much, because again, the album cuts on East 1999 are better than the album cuts on most other albums. I mean, again, you've got Eternal, you've got Land of the Heartless, you've got a lot of songs. Mo Murda was not a single, my favorite Bone song. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love hip hop like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.